Well, hello there, and welcome to Freeform Disney. My name is Jeremy, and I'm glad to have you back. Now, first off, before I dive any further, I have a couple things I need to announce because I've now got a Patreon page for the channel, and we've got a few new patrons, and each week I'm going to be letting you know who the people are from the week before. So I am so super glad to actually have patrons. It's great, and it means so much to me. So the new patrons from last week, we have Dramsim, we have Certain Point of View, and we have Allison Wallace. So thank you so much, each of you, for being patrons. And yeah, it's so great. Anyway, let's move on to today's video. Today's video is, well, in the past few days, and so I've seen videos both from Star Wars Theory and from Eckhart's Ladder and some other comments about the whole Mandalorian map. Now, we're going to have spoilers up through chapter 15 of The Mandalorian here, just forewarning. Now, there's the big map questioning where the heck Moff Gideon actually is, and trying to match this up to Star Wars galaxy maps and yada yada, try to figure it out. Okay, so I watched those, trying to think about this. You know, I've been spending way too much time trying to figure this one out, frankly. But hey, here I'm going to let you know what I think. So, first off, this map, is it a map that is meant to represent the galaxy? Well, the first issue I have right off the bat with that, take a look. This is a map that we saw in the most recent episode. Now, you notice objects all over this map. I mean, seriously, they're all over here. Now, if this is, say, Galactic East, this would be the unknown regions over here. And there shouldn't be much of anything over that way. Heck, I'll show you this. So, unknown regions. If we're going ahead and looking at that, here are the unknown regions, right? It's this whole section. We don't know much of anything about that area, so it's a bit problematic. But everybody I see tries to be putting this to a big galactic map. Interesting. But why would Din have a map of numerous big objects way out and over here? Well, okay, let's try to go in a little further. Now, interesting thing noted in there is that, guess what? We might have actually seen, say a bit of this mapping before at other times, because it's not the first time we've seen this same general map over in The Mandalorian. So, maybe we have some other clues on some of what's going on this map. Okay, so let's jump on through just a little bit. Here we go. So this is chapter 10. Second episode of season 2 here. Now, this is when Din was traveling with Frog Lady and Grogu from Tatooine over to the nearby planet, well, estuary moon of Trask. Now, we get to see him actually plotting the actual map. So, what do we end up seeing? Well, here we see this. We zoom in a little further, keep zooming in. Ooh, all kinds of other objects popping up now. Keep zooming in, and here's the map. Now, you can see the plotted course. You can see where we started here, too. And in case you're not sure, I mean, the actual orange line starts from this spot. So that also means that this symbol clearly indicates where Din is at any point in time. So that's another hint that might come in handy later. Okay, so that means that we now know that this planet is Tatooine. So we've got a point of reference, assuming that these maps line up and they're the same map. Well, as a number of people have already talked about, the answer is yes. Now let me go ahead and show you that. So here's the one that we had just from last episode. Here is this map. Now this one is the one that I was showing you there from chapter 10. And if you see if I put it down to the opacity to 50%, you can see this overlay over top of each other. You see all these stars match up. Yeah. Now, they're from slightly different angles, so you'll notice that change, but you can see these are definitely the same star map. No question about it. Okay, so we have the same star map. Now, let me go ahead and lay in one more piece on top of this. So, we have this piece. Now, this, let's zoom in a little further here. This is that zoomed in map with the course that we know that he went ahead and took. And you can see how big a portion of the entire map this takes up. It's a pretty significant portion here. Now, here's what's also important to note. Remember that this was not a normal hyperspace journey he took in Chapter 10. Because as the communication was, hey, you want me to travel sublight, deals off. Why? Because the eggs had to be transported and they would all be dead if he went into hyperspace. So we know he went by sublight, and we also know a little bit about somewhat how close it is. Now, what we were told is first, Peli Motto went ahead and told him, it's in this sector, one system trailing, and the contact wants passage to the system. Now later she actually says it's one sector over, but that almost has to be a mistake in line. Simple mistake, system sector, and it wasn't caught, sadly. Just because otherwise that contradicts what she said earlier anyway, where she said it was in this sector. Now, a sector in Star Wars can be 50 to 500 star systems, possibly even more depending on the case. So it's a whole ton of star systems. Now, when we're talking traveling at a much slower speed, it's really important that it's close by. So the fact that it's in the same sector is important. And we say it's only one system trailing, so that argues that it is a system right next to the actual Tatoo system, the binary star system that Tatooine is part of. So it's pretty dang close. Now that does make this map slightly confusing when it comes to it. Let's jump over to it this way. Okay. So that means if we're looking here, this is Tatooine. This is the estuary moon of Trask, which is around the planet Kol-i-Ben in the Kol-i-Ben system. Now we know this and this are in two neighboring systems right next to each other, which would say, I don't know what these boxes are necessarily, but these can't be different sectors if they've already argued that it's the same sector. So maybe these are supposed to be two different systems, and then we get all these objects that are tons of questions, maybe asteroids even at this point? Or zoomed in enough, you would care about those. And I have to question what these bodies are. Part of me wants to think, hey, maybe this is Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2, the actual two stars of the Tatooine system, but that would put Trask so close to them. Heck, gravity well-wise is almost as close as Tatooine itself, and that's a trick of its own right. Well, okay, we've established it's one system over between Trask and Tatooine. They're really close. Now, what's one other reason these have to be really close? He's traveling sublight. And that's really key because there's only certain speeds you can make at sublight. All right, just to be clear, let's pop this up. Okay, so on our map here, let's pop out a little bit more. Okay, so here in this talk, while we're looking at this map, if we're saying this is a galaxy, let's go back to that galaxy map for a moment. Okay. So our official galaxy, this is the official galaxy from the Atlas. So this is as canon as it gets really right now. Okay, so Tatooine is way out here. This is the core. Now, even in current canon, we know the Star Wars galaxy is at least 100,000 light years in diameter. In other words, from here to Tatooine is going to be, let's call it at least 40,000 light years. Now, if we go ahead and put that official map on top of there, and remember the distance between here and roughly all the way down to here is the distance he's traveling? Okay, now you take this whole distance here, this has got to be on the order of over 10,000 light years if it were the galaxy. We got a problem here. To travel 10,000 light years at the speed of light would take the object traveling 10,000 years. That's the whole point of it being measured in light years. It's the amount of distance light travels in a year. So you can see a slight problem if this is a galaxy-sized map, but that also wouldn't make any sense. It's way too big to be in the same sector if that's the case as well. And that's where we come back to a map like this one over here. So this is actually a map of the sector Arcanus right here. Now that's the one that has the systems of Tatooine, Geonosis, Arcanus, and numerous others, probably Kol-i-Ben as well. Okay, so now we're getting a little somewhere too, right? So we know that this is just this tiny little portion, yet we know how much of the map it takes up. It's this giant portion of the map. So clearly, this can't be a galaxy-sized map. Unless you're telling me he traveled 20,000 years worth of time. That's if he traveled half the speed of light. Now, I'm not taking any relativity pieces into account here. All that would do is change the amount of time for him, not the amount of time for the galaxy as a whole anyway. And sci-fi generally doesn't care about relativity, because it makes everything a complete mess to try to deal with. Okay, so here we go. So we are really close. Now, one more piece here. We know that the planet Geonosis is less than a parsec away from Tatooine, which is 3.5 light years, so we know it's a lot closer than that. And heck, if the map is actually to scale, it would have to be less than a light year itself as a total just to fit that space. If you do little measurements on the map, it comes out to have to be that way. And frankly, for Din and Grogu and the Frog Lady to have made that trip in any kind of reasonable time at a sublight speed, ignoring relativity, then it has to be incredibly close. These systems have to be so close to each other because it would take you so long in real time to do it otherwise, and it certainly did not seem like that. And on top of all of that, for bonus points, they actually go ahead and crash onto another planet, or maybe it's a moon. So that's Maldo Crace, which for what it's worth, we got the name earlier and it was also confirmed. Over here, you see somebody who translated this one out. I found that over on Reddit, and they translated out what we actually saw, so we do know where he crashed was Maldo Crace. Pretty cool, actually. Now, that makes me assume Maldo Crace must be in the Kolai Bend system. It's gotta be either that or he passed through an entirely different star system on the way to the Kolai Bend system, which, dang, then we're starting to get real messy on time. So if this is not the galaxy, then just what is it we're looking at? How bloody small does this map have to be? It has to be pretty bloody small, right? Oh, and don't get me wrong, this gets messy really fast. So if we're looking at this, so this is all of this size here, then I'm looking, maybe we try matching this up at a much smaller scale. See, I even tried looking at maybe at a sector level. So this is probably bigger than the map would be. So is this one over here. But even then, these other points of reference here don't make a whole lot of sense. But if it's incredibly small, then it would. So we jump way in over here. Yes, I know this is distorting a little as we're so zoomed in. But see, this is Tatooine, and we assume we're running this way a little bit because I tried to put maybe the center spot would be Christophsis. That's an important spot. Even so, we have all these spots in this map that I don't know. They don't reference anything specific, but this could be what this map is. This all sounds really good, right? Because obviously, based on what we saw on the map, it can't be a very long section. It has to be a small part of the galaxy as a whole. By the way, look how small a part of the galaxy that map would be referencing. So tiny. Makes sense, right? It should anyway. We have one teensy tiny problem with all of this. And I've got to mention it because, hey, it does put a bit of a question my whole theory going on here. So here we go. There's one other important time we saw a map, and it's this one. This is from the time we saw Tython. So we saw Din here. We also saw this red dot up here. Not entirely sure what that means, because this clearly means Din is at this spot. And also he seems to get to Tython pretty close to that, so this is not too far off. Now here's the problem, and it's a big one. As was noted actually in another video, and this is an Eckhart's one, well, guess what? This up here says Tython, and this says region and says deep core. Yeah. So this was a big question I had because Tython is supposed to be in the deep core as far as everything we know on where Tython's supposed to be. So both in Legends as well as current canon, that's supposed to be Tython. Tython's not supposed to be way out here. But here's the problem. That map, as we clearly just went through, can't be talking about Tython being over here. It doesn't fit with the map that we showed. Nor does it fit with putting all of these stars out here into the unknown regions. It just doesn't work. Stars or objects or whatever. Okay, we got a mess. Everything else would lead me hugely to say, yeah, it's just this tiny little region right over here. Which, by the way, would make a lot of sense for what we've seen in the show. We've seen Tatooine. We know that other places are close to it as well because we know Kolai Bend is close. And because of that, Therefore, Trask and heck, Maldo Crace is in between the two. And it makes sense that a lot of these other locations are really close, and they could be all over here, all in this little Arcana sector. But Tython throws everything off. Everything is thrown off by that. And I don't know what to do with that. It doesn't fit everything else we know. So what do? Maybe the map is just gobbledygook and it means absolutely nothing. And by the way, it's worse than just the map sitting there and, well, yeah. Well, it doesn't have that connection. By the way, this is the Arcana sector here, as you can see on this map too. Because we run into another problem. If we want to say that it's a galaxy-sized map. And that problem is, not only do we put all these objects over here in the unknown regions, but these other spots don't really line up. Like we could say, oh, they're a little off on where Biss is. Well, this is supposed to be Coruscant. And then we start getting messier and messier with some of these other things, and we're like, what are these supposed to be? Why are they where they are? Why is Corellia not on this map? There's Corellia right here. You notice there is no object anywhere close to where Corellia is supposed to be. And yeah, heck, why is there no mark for Ord Mantell? I mean, that's big, that's important, etc., etc. It just doesn't work as a galaxy-sized map. And maybe they just started using this map in season 1, just drew something up. It didn't have to matter what it was at first. And then we went later in the show, and well, then they started to continue to use it and decided it was this and that and the other, and no one's actually been caring about the lore of the map. And I'm quite worried that actually might be the best explanation for what's going on. Because one thing's for sure, it does not make sense to be a galactic map. It just doesn't, as we've gone through and established. So there you go. I could keep rambling on, but I think we're about done talking about that for today. So what do you think? What does this tell you about this map and, well, heck, whatever it means for Moff Gideon's location and everything else? Definitely let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. And hey, I will be live streaming, doing a watch party for the final episode with my second time seeing it over at noon on Friday. So definitely look forward to that. It's going to be great, I'm sure. I have no doubt about that. I'm going to go thank all my patrons again. So this is going to be the spot where I'll normally have all that up. So not just the announcements about the people who are new, but the patrons as a whole. You get to see everybody's name here. And oh, again, thank you so much, everyone. Okay, and with that, thank you everyone so much for watching. If you haven't gone ahead and done it yet, please click the like button, go ahead and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I'll see you again next time here with another video on Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you always.